Well, ladies and gentlemen, hello everyone, and welcome to SKG Pro Racing Series. We are about to get underway for round 3 here at the Circuit of the Americas. I am Owen Boldero, and I will be taking you through all of today's action, and I am really looking forward to today's race, as that is not what I want. Apologies about the echo if you just heard that. Hopefully that should all be fixed now. But here we go then. One could be where time is gained and where time is lost. So here we go then. Let's jump into qualifying. Your mic is kind of glitchy. Hopefully I fixed it. I'm getting spammed with adverts, so hopefully... Yeah, I fixed it. Okay, good. Apologies about that. It was a double input, but it has been fixed now. So here we go then. No one in a rush to come out of the pit lane just yet. Oh, okay. So we are in the glitched phase of the qualifying countdown. So this is something I've actually noticed with this wonderful F125 game we are on. Sometimes the countdown will start, and then as soon as you think you're underway, no, you are not. The game just resets the timer, waits for drivers to get into the lobby. But it's going to be a very, very interesting race, as nobody is in a rush to come out of the pit lane yet, are they? Not at all. The last race at Las Vegas was a very, very good race. It was very tight. There were some battles, some DRS trains. You know, Las Vegas. We've had 2 American races in a row as finally we have drivers coming out onto the track. But it has been a good start to the season, and hopefully COTA can replicate the same kind of racing. As let's head down to Tomas Kokeni. Apologies if I butcher any pronunciations in this stream, let's say. I hope I do a decent enough job on them. He is the first out onto the track. Let's get everything we need up for this qualifying session for the Alpine driver making his way through Sector 1. The sector really where it all matters, if we're all being honest. This is the sector where you can definitely invalidate your lap. I feel like there are a few corners here where you can invalidate, and I think the entirety of Sector 1 is a hazard, and then a couple of corners in Sector 2, and then the second to last corner in the final sector as well. Those are probably the danger points, but with this being the Pro Series, I feel like that shouldn't be an issue for most of our drivers here today. Now into the middle sector. This next corner, a very big overtaking opportunity come the race, and it's also a place where you can defend. You know, parking your car in the middle of the racetrack is actually a viable strategy due to the way the corner turns. You know, sometimes you have to heavily defend the inside for certain corners, but that is not one. You know, this is a very wide circuit, but that kind of swooping corner does not lend itself to a heavy inside defender in the middle of the track. Is the way to go, as here we go on board with the Alpine now, beginning his first lap of the session. DRS deploying, all the battery deploying towards turn 1, braking into turn 1, slight lockup, cuts the curb nice and clean. He goes out wide, and then just going to swoop his way through turn 2, turn 3, full flat through here, and then you're just going to have a slight lift here, downshift maybe, and then you're going to roll it in down to 5th gear. First sector, 24.478 for Tamas Kokeni, good start to his lap there, as now towards the heavy braking zone, braking just after the 100 board, flick it in, use the curb on the inside, and then you're getting ready, deploying what battery you have down the DRS straight here, keeping it as close to the white line on the outside as you can, as you now head towards difficult left-hander braking on the curb, using all of the track available to you. A 1 minute 4.62. This is looking very clean from the Alpine so far, and then here going wide and then really swooping in, using all the racetrack. This is kind of the main goal of driving here at COTA, is you really have to use everything that the racetrack gives you, as that is unfortunately an invalidation for Tamas Kokeni. Just extended that track limits a little bit too much. It would have been a 1 minute 33, as his teammate puts in a 1 minute 34. In the background, we see a car now coming to start their lap, as now the Red Bull of Ivan Eskrig puts in a 30.0, 4.5 tenths faster than Fab Donoso. Noah Razal puts in a 1:30.426, still 4 tenths off of the Red Bull, whose time looks strong at the top at the moment. Dennis Langrock puts in a 1:32. Ferrari immediately goes ahead of him in second fastest with a 1:31. And then the Ferrari teammate Victor Whittier puts in a 1:29.988. We're in to the 1:29s, ladies and gentlemen, as we now head to the Mercedes of Marios Lanu, who puts in a 1:35. The Aston Martin of Lucas Besner puts in a 1:34. And now we're going to go down. Ryan Grob puts in a 30.8. Go to the RB of Tachubi now, who's in the first sector. His teammate has just come across the line, puts it into P5. Nice stuff there. As Jack Maloney goes slowest of the pile, 1:32.6. Although I imagine that was probably a preparatory lap. I don't think that is going to be representative of what he can do in this session. Picking up a little toe there, Tachubi, from the back of the Ferrari, who is on an in-lap in this session now. It's now towards the heavy braking zone, using too much track, and that is an invalidation for Tachubi there. Just turned in a little bit too early, and that will be the end of his lap. Does he have enough fuel to go for push, cool push is the question, or is he going to bail into the pit lane immediately here? Do you see Paul Villegas sliding his way into the pit lane? If you're going to head into the pit lane, why not do it with some style? A revision of a very famous quote from a very famous film. So we now see the Aston Martin of the Ferrari of Alex Santana and Dennis Langrock sort of messing around in the final two corners. I don't think they're going to be going on to laps. It didn't look like they had enough battery, and no, they're not. But they were revving their engines high here, and really just having a little bit of fun out there, as we now go to Odino Tux, who is invalidated, unfortunately for him. So he is going to make his way into the pit lane. And now pretty much everyone has completed their first runs here. We go back to the silence, the sound of silence, if you will. We have the Haas of Lukatas Serra here on track, and he is on an in-lap. He is going to be coming in here, as he leaves it late, but he does come in. So that is going to be the end of his first run, which he unfortunately was unable to put in. And now everyone back in the pit lane, as we now have an Alpine coming back out immediately. He was only in for about a minute or so, and is coming straight back out to try and get a lap in. That could be Tamas Kokeni, who did not get to set that lap time earlier in the session. And it is not. It is his teammate of Fab Donoso coming out onto the track here. The man currently sat in P8, a TRT driver, looking to make some gains up the field. So he is P8 currently, and he is within half a tenth of P6 here. So even a margin of an improvement would move him up 2 positions. And if he were to gain, for instance, a 10th and a half, that could put him in the mix with the likes of Enzo Sabaton in P5, and then could maybe even push towards Dennis Langrock, who is actually only 1,000th of a second faster than the RB behind him. Very close stuff between those two. As now we watch Fab Donoso, who is in, hopefully going to actually be in quite a nice little pocket of space. I mean, he can afford to slow down here a little bit. If we look at the track map on the right, ladies and gentlemen, you can see that he is in a very nice little bit of space, because the next car is his teammate, who is only halfway down the long DRS straight, and he is starting his lap, as actually there is a Haas coming out of the track, coming out onto the track, who could impede him as he comes into turn 1. Hopefully it shouldn't be an issue, but Fab Donoso has timed this perfectly, and once that Haas is cleared, is in a beautiful little bit of space, big bit of space even, to really push on his second lap of the session. Now through sector 1, he battles nice and clean. That looked very tidy, but he is actually 600ths of a second down here. It looked tidy, but it wasn't fast. He was going slower than his previous best, as now can he find any time in the middle sector? Maybe use a little bit more battery down the straight here. As here we go, we ride on board. How much battery is he going to deploy down here? The Haas is going to get out of the way, so Fab Donoso is going to have... Is he going to be clear? I mean, they've all slowed down quite significantly, and if they don't get on with it, then Fab Donoso is going to get quite heavily impeded, because he is on a lap here, making his way now through turn 16, and yeah, he very much could get impeded here, because they are literally sat still on this corner here. They need to get a move on, as a big snap of oversteer on exit, car kicked out on him, and it is an invalidation, which means he comes back into the pits. So we go on board with provisional poleman Victor Widler, who has Ivan Eskrig 200s behind him, but just in front of him on track, so we can relatively compare these two's lap times, since they are pretty much going to be in the same sector all the time. There we are. There you see the Red Bull of Ivan Eskrig here. As maybe a little bit too far back to be picking up the advantage of a tow. But what we are going to get the advantage of is comparative times here, as now towards the middle sector split comes Eskrig, and he is 2.5 tenths down. What about Widler? He is 600ths down. So the track not really ramped up particularly, because it doesn't seem like many drivers going faster here in the session. Maybe struggling for a little bit of grip. I mean, it's not overcast, it's relatively sunny. There are some clouds in the sky, but there is also sun. As now we see Victor Widler. Perfect stuff through there. Now, round the final corner, using all the curb available, up to the line, comes the Ferrari. It's a 30.0, 700ths down on his personal best, and not faster, as Dennis Langrock was 700ths of a second down. In the first sector, he's not pushing, he has just done his lap, putting a 30.0. Thomas Kokeni finally got that lap time he's been looking for in, as Alex Santana puts himself into P3 there. Lovely, lovely lap time from him there. As Fab Donoso is now back out on the track, by the way, as Tom Roberts has joined. Better late than never, as they say. Better late than never, but with the time left, it could well end up being a one-shot qualifying for him in this session, because there is only probably, 7 minutes left on the clock? Probably, as now we see Fab Donoso getting overtaken by the Ferrari. There that was. That was Victor Widler, who is on his in-lap. Because now, let's go to Lucas Beisner, who invalidates there. So we move to Noah Razal, who has invalidated as well. Fab Donoso is on an outlap. Pau Villegas is not pushing. Odino Tux is pushing though. No, he's not. So nobody pushing here at the moment. It doesn't look like. Jack Maloney was up to the line. He comes second up, a 1:30.15. It's enough for an improvement, but it's not enough for a rise up the ranks in this qualifying here, unfortunately for him. But he is closer now. He's only sort of 6/10 off the back of Myth, his Williams teammate, who is second to last. So not a good race at the moment for one of the most iconic teams in Formula 1, that being Williams. As once again, we see everybody into the pits here. Nobody on push laps, I don't think. It doesn't look to be. So we wait and see. There is only one driver now who has not set a time, and that is Tsubi in the V-Carb we are waiting for. And from what I've seen of Tsubi, I have someone I have commentated on a few times. Wouldn't say a lot, but a few times. He'll be relatively quick in this session. But of course, these are faster drivers, let's say, than I ordinarily commentate on. I do know though that Tsubi took pole at, I believe it was Qatar, as we see him come out of the pit lane now. He is the first of the bunch to come out, and now we're going to see a big gaggle of drivers coming out onto the track here before we get underway for the final laps, which is coming in the next minute or so. And these final laps are quite important because, I mean, COTA, it is a circuit that you can overtake on, but some people take higher wings, so we will see. But it is a circuit where DRS trains can very well form, and with how strong Dirty Air is in this game, it's quite important sometimes to make sure you are in the best qualifying position you can be, let's say. As we go, let's go to one of the Mercedes. It is Marios Lonu who is going to be the first to start a lap. The first to start their final lap. Let's say no one is going to be going for a two-run plan. It's just a straight shootout now between these 18 drivers to see who can go quickest. As now round the penultimate corner and towards the final corner comes the Mercedes. Here we go then. This is it. This is do or die for all of our drivers here in this qualifying. This is what it all comes down to. Pole position is decided on these laps here, as through turn 1 goes Lonu relatively cleanly. But the question is, with these drivers, what looks clean and fast to me might not necessarily be fast by their standards, as we see Marios hit the first sector split, and that was faster. It's a 300th improvement. It won't be quite enough at the moment to move him up the order, but he is knocking on the door of Fab Donoso's 130.459. It's now towards the DRS straight comes Lonu. The Mercedes opening that DRS flap up, something we won't have as of the DLC pack, which is launching apparently in June. As now round the left-hander up to the second sector, and it's a 10th of a second improvement, nearly 900ths. So relatively good at gains, and I mean he's currently going to get past Noah Razal and not far off of moving himself up to P8, maybe even P7. If he can find a really good final sector, it could actually be a very strong lap time here from Marios Lonu, as through the final corner he goes. Up to line, big wiggle on exit. It's a 130.286. It is enough to go up to 7th, but how much did that little snap of oversteer cost him, I wonder. As next will be the Alpine of Fab Dinoso. 0.3 of a second up. Big improvements coming in from some of these drivers now finally finding the time that they struggled to find on their previous laps. 0.4 improvement, 1:30.0. P3 for the Alpine. Good stuff there. And now we're going to see a big gaggle of cars coming through. We're going to go to Lucas Serra, who was 2.5 up, goes 4.5 faster. P7, 1:30.249. Victor Widler puts in a 29.8. That is provisional pole. Next across the line is the Sauber of Noah Razal, who puts in a faster time. Paul Villegas moves himself up to 8th place there. 11th place, sorry. As now we go to Dennis Langrock coming through the final couple of corners. This is another driver we need to watch out for. As here we go. How much up was the Aston Martin? It's an improvement, but it's not pole. He misses out by just over 0.5. And now we all eyes on Alex Santana, who does not improve. What about the McLaren of Ryan Grob? He is not going faster and is going to peel into the pit lane here, which means that is qualifying decided, ladies and gentlemen. And first through to 16th were split by less than a second. That is how tight it is here today. Very, very close stuff. And that was a very exciting end to qualifying. The Ferrari of Victor Widler, who's been on pole most of the session, manages to just about find what he needs to stay on provisional pole, but he was challenged very closely by the Aston Martin of Dennis Langrock, who can be proud of that lap time, but it was just not quite enough to go on to pole. As here we are, here is the final order. So it's Victor Widler on pole, Dennis Langrock second, Ivan Eskrug third, followed by Fab Dinoso, Alex Santana rounding up the top 5. Then it's Thomas Kokeni, Lucas Beisner, Lucas Serra, Noah Razal, Enzo Sabaton, Marios Lonu, Paul Villegas, Ryan Grob, Tachubi, Odino Tux, Myth, the Papa Wada, and Jack Maloney here. And that is how we line up heading into the race. Well, what a session that was, ladies and gentlemen. That was very, very close at the front. And I think that sets us up very nicely for the race. You know, COTA is a circuit, as I said, that DRS trains will form. So we're going to have some big trains here in today's race. And from what I'm seeing in front of me, it is overcast. It looks relatively dark. So could that bring the air of rain, ladies and gentlemen, which would all the more spice up this race. But whilst we're in the intermission, let's take a quick look at our calendar, shall we? As we started at Hungary for pre-season, we went to Qatar, we've gone to Las Vegas, we're here today at Texas, and then next week we head to Austria, the Red Bull Ring, followed by Mexico, Belgium, as we're already going. I did not know that was immediate. Here we go. It's to the 5 red lights. We'll talk about that later. And we're underway here in COTA. It's a bad start from the Alpine. In the background, Victor Widler getting away cleanly. But there's an Aston Martin flying off the track. Oh my word, what is happening? I think somebody readied early. So it is going to be a lobby reset if I had to guess. Let me take a quick look at the chat if I have access to it, which I do not, but if I had to guess, it was going to be a lobby reset. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go to intermission for a little bit. We will be back pretty soon with more for you. We'll see you in a bit. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're now going back into the lobby for the Pro Series race here at COTA. So we've done some digging and we have found out why we unfortunately were delayed in getting underway and had to lobby restart. It was because there was unfortunately somebody in the wrong car, is what I have been told. And that is why we had the lobby restart. So we are now just getting ready to get back underway. So we're going to have drivers putting their setups back on, drivers doing their strategies, doing their fuel, and getting ready, looking forward for the race. So whilst we wait, let's talk about the calendar, which we didn't get to do before because we were interrupted. So we go to Red Bull Ring next week, then we go to Mexico, Belgium, China, Britain, Spain, Monza, Brazil, and then we head to Abu Dhabi for the season finale. And that is going to be one hell of a calendar. I've got to say there are some absolute bangers in there. Austria, Mexico, Belgium, and then into Britain are some of my favourite tracks on this game to commentate upon. So I am incredibly excited to get it all underway. Hopefully I will be with you guys pretty much every week from now on for the SKG Pro Series. And I've got to say, the level we saw in qualifying was one of the highest levels I've seen in a very long time. And once again, it is overcast in the sky. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm seeing. Let's transition over to the game and have a look, shall we? Here we go. This is what I am seeing. Here in the pit lane, you can see some very overcast skies, which does raise some questions of if we're going to get some rain in this race. Somebody said my camera's poking out the graphic. I did not realise this I am sorry, Hyperlethal Studio, for setting off your OCD. It looked lined up in OBS, but at the end of the day, OBS is not as correct as the naked eye, let's say. Now I do know, yes. Graphics on stream are amazing, by the way. Thank you. These are courtesy of SKG and Driveline Media, who I'm here working for today as we go to the 5 red lights, and we are underway here in COTA. It's a good start from Victor Widler getting into turn 1, but Dennis Langrock is going to look to go down the inside. There's some ghosting shenanigans going on, as in the background Fabrizio Donoso is going to get himself up to P4. Everybody ghosting. Contact between the Red Bull and the Ferrari. It's going to send the Alpine flying off the track and down the order to the very back of the pack. That is absolute chaos. We now head to Thomas Kokeni, locked in battle with Ryan Grob. Everybody is ghosting for some reason. Has ghosting been left on in the lobby or something? This is not something you see ordinarily. That is what caught Fabrizio Donoso out there as his Alpine teammate now of Thomas Kokeni, looking for a move on the Sauber of Noah Razal down the inside. Lovely stuff, leaves him just enough room on the outside. Little bit of a nudge saying this is going to be my corner. They're both alongside. The Sauber gets just the better run off the corner using a little bit more ERS, and the Alpine has to tuck in here as now the RB of Enzo Sabaton making the move on Lucas Beisner there. Round the outside he goes, which is going to switch to the inside for the next corner. He's going to get it done. I think the Aston Martin gets nudged out wide. Run off track. He does manage to keep it alongside just about. They're still making contact. 1, 2, 3 corners with contact. And now will the Aston Martin get it done? No, they're still side by side. And it ends with the Moss track. They're absolutely barging each other. This is on the limit racing at its finest. And they're still side by side after half a lap of racing. Enzo Sabaton just gets it done as now Lucas Beisner comes back at him round the outside into turn 1. Gets the shove off the track a little bit. And now does finally have to cede a position as Thomas Kokeni did look at making a move on the Aston Martin there. Unfortunately, nothing doing as now Noah Razal and Marius Lonu briefly were alongside each other, but not quite. Mercedes not quite able to force the issue in this particular situation. Well, that was some chaos between 6th and 7th, let's say. They absolutely were going for it, and they have lost DRS now to Alex Santana, Luca Teixeira, and the top 3 ahead, as now Lucas Beisner and Enzo Sabaton going at it again. Little bit of the squeeze from the RB once again, who goes for a switchback, and that opens the opportunity for the Alpine to have a little think about a move. He goes for the wider line, is going to cut in for the inside line whilst those two fight it out. He's got 1. Can he get 2 round the outside, which is going to be the inside for the next corner? Out the Alpine taking full advantage and moving himself past the Aston Martin. He considered trying to take Enzo Sabaton, but decided he was not going to go for it. These guys are killing each other. Well, they're not killing each other because nobody has DNF'd yet, but it's certainly on the limit racing, as now the Alpine gets past the RB into turn 1 nice and cleanly. No contact there. 3-second gap. Yeah, there is a nearly 3-second gap. 2.5 is the distance between the Haas and the Alpine in 5th and 6th respectively. And that was one hell of a mighty scrap. What happened to Fab? There was some ghosting shenanigans, let's say. I'm interested to see what the stewards will say afterwards if it is put to them, because, well, it was a whole mess. I don't really know if it was for anyone's fault. There's now Marius Lonu looking for a move on Lucas Beisner, who is dropping down the field in this race. And now Noah Razal also looking to get involved in this round the outside. Marius Lonu goes on the inside of him, gets it done. Apologies, it was this Sauber and the Mercedes having a go at each other, not the Aston Martin ahead. My apologies. As now Enzo Sabaton picks up a 3-second penalty after only 3 laps in this race. So he has got as many seconds of penalties as there have been laps in this Grand Prix so far. As we now go to Ryan Grob, who saw some cars go off track in front of him a little bit. Maybe picking up a warning, potentially, through there. As now these guys currently very close to each other. Ryan Grob has a little think, considered trying to force the issue on Razao ahead, but decided against it and is staying behind for at least another sector through here, because you can't ordinarily overtake in the first sector. It's not an orthodox overtaking opportunity, let's say. As, by the way, something to note, Thomas Kokeni is starting to pull that gap back. It was 2.6 a few laps ago, and it is now around 2.2. So he is starting to pull it back ever so slightly. The question is, can he carry that on? Because, of course, the entire top 5 has DRS. That is something Thomas Kokeni and the crew behind him, well, Thomas doesn't have it, so they're in their own little train here. And Luca Tessera can just use the DRS of those ahead of him to keep pulling the gap out, which is currently what is happening. But Thomas does look quick, so maybe he can pull off some miracles. In the background, Fab Donoso going around the outside of Cameron Dowds, who I believe was one of the late joiners in this Grand Prix. As I don't remember, his name was not in qualifying. Someone saying holy console representation. Yeah, we have no drivers on console, but that is what you get towards the top. Show tyres, of course, but not that. Here we are. This is what we're rocking, ladies and gentlemen. So Cameron Dow's going on the inside of Pau Villegas up to P15 there. So we have the entirety of first down to 14th on mediums, and then Cameron Dow's, Pau Villegas, Miff and Tom Roberts, the only hard tyre runners in this session here. So we will see what works as Tom Roberts now picks up a 3-second penalty. I'll leave the tyres on screen, as now Lucas Beisner picks up a 3-second penalty as well. So some time penalties starting to be handed out in this race for drivers cutting the corners a little bit more than they should do. As we will now go back to just the gaps. As there's a whole argument going in chat, basically. There's now Lucatus Serra. Nice onboard view here, chasing down Alex Santana ahead of him. These guys all at the front just using each other to escape from the guys behind them, who really kind of shot themselves in the foot with their very hard racing in the first few laps. Which is, of course, what created that 3-second gap that we are seeing now. And it is starting to go up now. It did look like it was coming down, but the power of DRS and the lack of it for the Alpine of Thomas Kokeni is starting to hurt him, which is why he's started to lose time here to the cars in front of him. And I mean, he's doing a good job actually of keeping the likes of Enzo Sabaton, Lucas Beisner, Marios Lonu behind him, because he doesn't have DRS, but he's doing well to use everything he's got to defend from these guys. And he's got relatively okay battery levels from what we can see there. Don't argue in chat, guys. Don't argue in chat. There's no Enzo Sabaton pulling out of the slipstream of Thomas Kokeni, probably to cool his engine. You know, engine temps are something you've really got to watch out for in this game. As that explains what's going on in chat. Oh dearie me. As now we head on to lap 7 of 28, and since that big battle between 6th down to 9th. There is yet to be any real big movement since we're starting to see a few DRS trains beginning to form. And it is starting to reign true. The gap between 5th and 6th is starting to stabilise now a little bit. It's staying around that margin, but it's certainly not going down. There's now Pau Villegas going around the outside of the Papa Wada. What a name. And moves himself up to 15th place in this race. Of course, no points handed out for 15th ordinarily. So that is purely for pride. As now through the middle sector we go. And it's all looking quite nice for the guys at the front as the sky looks to have cleared up a little bit. It looked quite overcast to start with, but it now just looks like some sunny sky with some clouds, but they're certainly not dark clouds. They're looking a lot lighter than they were earlier in the race. When we started the race, it really looked like it was completely pitch black, as now we see some drivers, some movement of those heading into the pit lane. Alex Santana and Luca Tessera heading in to the pit. What is their tyres going to be? It's going to be the hard compound for the Ferrari. What about Lucatus? It is going to be the hards as well. And these two are going to come out in a very nice little bit of space. They're going to be racing each other, but with the strategy they're on, they will probably use each other if they're close enough to try and pull the undercut in this race, which is obviously what they are going for. They've come in earlier to go for a crazy big undercut. There's now Victor Widler at the front, by the way. Gap is currently 8/10. It's been slowly creeping up. And I mean, they're not gaining an egregious amount, even with the DRS. So it's starting to look like maybe Victor Widler can maybe break the toe of those ahead of him. Of course, I could be completely wrong, and I probably am. But that was what it was looking like at the point I said it. Now, we're going to move down a little bit further down the order as that gap to the likes of those ahead with Thomas Kokeni has gone up, as now all of those at the front, Victor Widler, Dennis Langrock, Ivan Eskrig, are all going to come in. Most of those behind them stay out. Noah Razal commits to the pit lane, as does Tachubi. Odina Tux also does, and I think other than them, that is no one else coming in. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 drivers in the pit lane here. As all round the outside goes Alex Santana on Dennis Langrock. Gets it done, I think. Just that was very close coming out the pit lane between these two. And that almost looked to end in a little bit of tears, because they made some contact into turn 1, when it all ends okay. But it does end with Alex Santana coming out on top in that battle, and behind his VNT teammate and Ferrari teammate of Victor Widler for what is the net race lead. Amazing VRT, let's go. I think you mean VNT, but yeah, good for them. As now Myth going down the inside and moving himself past the Papa Wada, who's going to keep his nose in on the inside, which will be the outside for this next swooping left-hander, and he's going to try and cut in and take the tighter line, which should give him the better exit, but it does not quite, unfortunately. VNT lol. Yeah, I thought you meant VNT. As now we have people at the front coming in as well. Thomas Kokeni, Enzo Sabaton, Lucas Beisner, all starting to move their way into the pit lane. As now we will go on board with Alex Santana. Chasing his teammate, but won't be pressuring him, of course, because these two are teammates. So their first goal is to secure a 1-2 for themselves. Hi, Mark. How are you doing, Mark? How are you doing? We've had a very active chat here today. We've been very, very active. Everyone been talking, whether it be about the race or random stuff. It's been entertaining to watch. As now we see Cameron Dowds moving himself past Marios Lonu, who might, he's not close enough. I thought he might maybe try and force his nose back up the inside, but he was not quite close enough. The DRS was just slightly too powerful for the McLaren, who moves himself up to the current race lead. But it won't be the net race lead, as that belongs to Victor Widler in this race. And let's, to that effect, take a quick look at tyres. So everyone who has come in is rocking the hard compound. Those who have not yet come in, we have Cameron Dowds and Pau Villegas left on hards. Then we have Marius Lonu, Ryan Grob and Fab Donoso left on the medium compound. So a few split strategies left to be decided in this one. How many miles, Diego? How many miles? As now Victor Widler gets himself into DRS on Tom Roberts, who I believe, let me just check this, has yet to pit in this race. I wanted to just be sure before I made any assumptions, but yes, he is yet to pit in this race. So this should be a relatively easy overtake for the two Ferraris to execute. It'll be Victor Widler first. Alex Santana will follow through. Can you always keep the tyres up? Yes, I can do. The reason I didn't is because I'm wary of it blocking parts of the screen. But if you want me to, then yeah. As now round the outside goes Victor Widler, getting Fab Donoso as well, who cuts in, gets the switchback. It's going to go on the outside. A little bit of a nudge between the Ferrari and the McLaren, and that's going to end in a spin. Tom Roberts goes round. Victor Widler tried to go down the inside. Maybe wasn't left enough room, but that is up to the stewards to think about later in the Grand Prix after we are finished. As Victor Widler picks up a 10-second penalty for cutting a corner and gaining a place, and that changes the landscape of this race by quite some way, because a 10-second penalty in a race of drivers on this level of pace could be near fatal. That could occasionally, sometimes. Illegal overtake will be removable, most likely. Right, okay, I see. That makes sense then. Makes sense. Illegal overtakes can be quite stupid in these races. Yep, Ryan into the pit. My apologies to miss that. F2. Yep, my apologies. There we are. But yeah, Victor Widler picking up that 10-second. But, as you say, it could well be removable in this one. It was an illegal overtake, and sometimes the illegal overtakes that they do dish out are a bit silly, as now Victor Widler moves himself up to P4, starts to come back through the field as his Ferrari teammate of Alex Santana goes down the inside as well. Very nice there. The two Ferraris working quite nicely together. Alex Santana using that window of his teammate going for a miff well to get himself past as well. And these two not actually too far off the race lead once again. They are on pretty much a full pit stop ahead of Cameron Dowds now, who currently leads the race but they have much newer tyres. Marius Lonu into the pit lane finally. Arguments in the chat once again. Marius Lonu goes on to the hard tyres. He is 100% going to the end. I imagine everyone else who was pitted is probably going to the end as well, as Tom Roberts parks it in the pit lane, decided that this was not his race. The contact with Victor Widler, of course. Which team is driving the Merc? I'm actually not sure on that one. ET8. There's your answer. Thank you, Oliver Knott. Thank you very much. As now, Dennis Langrock has managed to get himself back towards the two Ferraris. The question is, how quickly can he move himself past Myth, who is currently the roadblock blocking his path to Alex Santana and Victor Widler, which are, of course, the two people he is racing in this one. As we approach half race distance, that is who Dennis Langrock is racing. Those two drivers there, he is racing them for the win. Of course, Victor Widler has the penalty, but it could be removable. So there's a question mark next to Widler's name, let's say. There's a big question mark there, because he could win, he might not. It depends on if he appeals it, which he probably will, and if the stewards approve his appeal. As now, here we go, he is going to get himself past Myth. He is currently 1.3 seconds back. Can he gain the 4 tenths he needs to get himself back into DRS on the two Ferraris? As he used a bit of battery through there to do it. He's 1.1 off. Can he get a good enough first sector through here to get himself back in? He's getting closer, but I don't think he's quite going to be close enough. Come the DRS detection line, he might, he won't quite. He will not have DRS through here, unfortunately. Dennis Langrock down this straight. He will have to wait another lap, and he will have to try and use what he's got to minimise the gap now to the cars ahead, because they will have the DRS. As now there is a Victor Widler going down the inside, locks up. Pau Villegas will fight this with a little bit of contact, a little bit of a rub, as Alex Santana too far back to try and go through as well. And the Red Bull of Pau Villegas will move down to P3, but he still has to stop in this race. Those starting to come back at him do not, and this is actually very close to Victor Widler. Could use this now to break away, but he'd probably be smart to tow his teammate along, I'd say. He's probably going to try and tow Alex along, because he could come under pressure from Dennis Langrock, who is this detection point in DRS range. As Pau Villegas picks up another penalty. Speaking of, let's take a quick look at the penalty situation. So, Victor Widler has 10 seconds, then Pau Villegas, Luca Tessera, Enzo Sabaton, Lucas Beisner, Noah Razal, Odin O'Tux, and the Papawada all have 3 seconds of penalties. I just wanted to see what they were looking like. As now Victor Widler has dropped Pau Villegas in that first sector, so now Alex Santana can use this to strike and maybe get back into the DRS on his teammate, and they can start pulling away. They have 4.5 seconds up the road to Cameron Dowds, who still does have to pit. So these two are well and truly pretty much back in the net race lead in this one. And Alex Santana, I think, will just about get DRS. As the Papawada has left the session, Dennis Langrock close behind Pau Villegas here, who with that pen is probably not going to put up, or realistically shouldn't put up too much of a fight. but he will. Dennis Langrock doesn't have much ERS in reserves to use down that straight, so has to sit behind for a little bit longer, and that is probably going to lose him DRS to the two Ferraris ahead of him, which he has been so desperately trying to catch up with since they came into the pits, as Tsubi now picks up a 3-second penalty down in P13 in this race. He could go up a couple of positions because, of course, there are those who still have to pit in this race. Why am I quiet? Am I quiet? Am I quiet or something? Because I haven't been talking quiet. I've turned my mic up a little bit as Ivan Eskrig moves himself past Pau Villegas. No, just the race is chill. I see. Okay, that makes a little bit more sense. Yeah, the race has been very, very chill so far. It's been a... Speak loud at max volume. No, I don't want to break your ears, unfortunately. I mean, I'm probably relatively loud, and I'm not even on half volume on my mic. I'm naturally quite a loud talker. Be like STB. I'd rather not, but we're not going to go into that because this is SKG, not STB, and we are in the Pro Series. As I say that, Tsubi retires in the pit lane. That was some commentators cursing right there. There's now the two Ferraris still together. Still together in this one. They're using each other well. Dennis Langrock now 2.1 seconds away from the two Ferraris who have done well to extend that gap, probably helped by Pau Villegas holding Dennis Langrock up for a couple of laps, and then them getting themselves past relatively quickly. As now Thomas Kokeni getting past Miff there. Relatively nice overtake there, as now he looks to get himself past Enzo Sabaton, who is 2.3 seconds behind Lucatus Serra, who is now on the chase of Pau Villegas, who is still out on track after 17 laps on the same set of tyres. He is still on the track. I mean, he's not that far off of range of him being able to go onto the soft compounder tyre, as Lucas Beisner goes down the inside of Miff and moves himself past. Miff is starting to drop like a hotcake, and he is starting to become a bit of a Miff himself in this race, because he is just falling further and further back into the abyss, as Marios Lonu moves himself past Odino Tux at turn 1. It seems to be the favourite overtaking place at the moment, does turn 1. We've seen some good moves through there, some clean ones, as Alex Santana is starting to fall away from his teammate ever so slightly, but these two are working well together. So Victor Widler goes into none mode to let his teammate stay in, and they are using each other to pull themselves towards Cameron Dowds, who is now only 2.4 seconds up the road from these two. So now Marios Lonu gets himself past his teammate. He doesn't have a pen. Ryan Grob does. He has 3 seconds. And Noah Razau ahead has a 3-second penalty. So, and with Marios Lonu having 1 lap newer tyres, can he gain the 2.1 seconds he needs to get himself up the order and past Noah Razau, as Cameron Dowds comes into the pit lane? 4 new tyres. It's going to be the medium tyres for him to the end of the race here. Final 10 laps as he cuts the pit lane exit. That is, of course, much, much faster to do, with him only doing one pit stop today. They're not going to get a 10-second pen for doing it twice. As we're in the as I like to say, the quiet phase of the race. Although we have drivers in DRS, we've not got any hard scraps. As I say that, big dive from Thomas Kokeni on Pau Villegas. He kind of had to do that. Pau Villegas has been a big moving roadblock for some of these drivers in this race, and he clears him with relative ease from a big dive, and that now releases him on 2-lap newer tyres to try and get past Luca Teixeira, and then maybe can he get himself up the road to try and catch Ivan Eskrig in this one, who is 2 seconds away ahead of the Haas in 5th, as Fabrizio Donoso picks up a 3-second penalty. And he has unfortunately not really been too much of a factor in this race after that spin he had at turn 1 through no fault of his own, through ghosting shenanigans is the best thing to chalk it up to. But at the front on lap 20 of 28, it's the 2 Ferraris still 3.7 seconds ahead. Their teamwork is more than warranted a race win here today, you've got to say. Victor Widler has been the leader for most of the race. These two have been relatively close together, but Victor Widler has done well to keep his teammate in DRS. Now using their battery through here, and then we will probably see Victor Widler go into none mode to let his teammate stay in. There we go. This is, of course, Alex Santana will pick up the win at the moment, but this is a TBD, to be decided, because, as we've said, Victor Widler has the 10-second penalty that could still yet get removed. As now, by the way, Pau Villegas and Miff did come in, as we saw, but they are now 5.9 seconds behind Fab Donoso. Can they claw back those 5.5 seconds? They're on 7-lap newer tyres, and they're on the softer compound. So can they use them to full effect and start to claw up the order, as they currently sit 4th and 3rd from last, as Cameron Dowds sets fastest lap in 9th place here. He is 1.3 off the back of Lucas Beisner, but the 3 cars ahead of him in this DRS train he is now approaching all have 3-second penalties. He does not yet have one. So Cameron Dowds currently a net P6, if you will, but of course he will want more. He will be constantly pushing to try and get past these drivers, and then maybe he can try and do something about the gap to Ivan Eskrig ahead of Thomas Kokeni in this battle, as Thomas Kokeni is a little bit further ahead, so it's not really been too much of a factor in that battle. It's more been about 5th, it's more been about 6th, 7th and 8th, as now Cameron Dowds comfortably gets himself past Lucas Beisner. The Aston Martin not really putting up too much of a fight there, and gets himself up to P8 pretty cleanly. As now behind Odono Tux going off track, taking some notes from Lando Norris there, and now is going to get passed by Ryan Grob and Fabrizio Donoso, up to P12 and P13 respectively, and Odono Tux dropping down to 14th. As that wasn't my intention, but you've now said it in chat. I had to say 6th, 7th and 8th in order, as now Cameron Dowds gets himself past Enzo Sabaton as well. He's up to P7 and is 1 second behind Luca Teixeira. He could well, I mean, he could well actually finish P4, maybe even P3 here, could Cameron Dowds. There's a 2-second gap If he can keep overtaking cars at the rate he has been and get himself past Thomas Kokeni relatively quickly, then he could well start to make some inroads on the podium ahead of him, on the podium drives ahead of him. As yes, I know, 6-7, yes, I know. As now Cameron Dowds using ERS. He's gaining, and he has passed. Now, there we go, up to P6 goes the McLaren, and he now just has Thomas Kokeni ahead of him, and then he's released a little bit, 2 seconds up the road to Ivan Eskrig and Dennis Langrock, who are fighting for the podium. So this could be an absolute masterstroke from the McLaren, one of the only drivers today with the pace to pull off the reverse strat, and he has done it very nicely, because he is only 1.8 seconds off of the fight for the podium. 2.1 actually, if you're counting the time, as he should move himself past Thomas Kokeni on this lap, who is going to go into none mode and is just going to let him go round the outside. Tries to fight it though, locks up in the process, but the McLaren of Cameron Dowds does get past and up to P5. Can he now build the gap in the first sector with those better tyres to stay ahead of the Alpine and then start chipping away at the Red Bull ahead of him? As once again, update at the front, the two Ferraris just using each other nicely, just sort of maintaining the gap they've got pretty nicely, and they are chugging along in full flow very nicely. They have been very, very good today. Their teamwork has been very strong. You know, Victor Widler as leader has gone into none mode where he needs to, allow Alex Santana to stay in that DRS. And they have been slowly but surely building that gap. Speaking of gaps, Cameron Dowds, 1.1 seconds behind Ivan Eskrig. Can he get himself into that 1 second range before we hit the detection point? Yes, he can. And he will have a DRS and could be on the final step of the podium in today's Grand Prix. 7 attempts as now in front of him, Dennis Langrock going down the inside. Or sorry, no, Ivan Eskrig going down the inside on Dennis Langrock. Round they go, and Ivan Eskrig will move himself past Dennis Langrock there. Up to P3 he goes. So it's now the two Ferraris and a Red Bull. It is like the start of 2022 all over again. But if it was 2022, Aston Martin would not ordinarily find themselves that high. But now, all eyes turn to Cameron Dowds. What can he do? As he is sat very sweetly, very nicely tucked up behind the Aston Martin. Can he now move himself past? He's gaining. And Dennis Langrock is going to push him towards the inside. But he is going to move himself past. He may even have a little look on Ivan Eskrig. Puts his nose there. There's a little bit of a snap from the Red Bull, which pushes him into the McLaren. They are going to stay alongside. Cameron Dowds gets the better run and is going to get past. But now the Red Bull is going to keep his nose in down the inside on the tight left-hander. But Cameron Dowds, with those better tyres, will get himself past and up to P3. Into the podium goes the McLaren, and on those medium tyres he can now begin to put in some work and build the gap to Ivan Eskrig, Dennis Langrock and Thomas Kokeni, who used this battle to get himself into a DRS as well. And then Enzo Sabaton, by the way, 1.5 behind these guys. Huh, right, I'm a poet and I didn't even know it. As now we watch Cameron Dowds, the man of the hour at the moment, and he has been the real mover in this race. He's been the real mover. 17 positions he has gained in this one, taking the alternate strategy to a third place. He is 5.7 behind Alex Santana in P2, so it might be a little bit of a big ask to try and catch the two Ferraris. But from dead last, from last to third, is still a valiant effort to put in. And he will probably find himself earning the driver of the day quite comfortably, because if we look at positions gained, the next biggest mover is Alex Santana and Enzo Sabaton, who have both gained 3 positions. So he's gained, well, he's gained more than the entire field combined. So he has done one heck of a job in this race. Has Cameron Dowds. What are you saying nope to? Do Ferrari need to pit? No, they don't. Well, they've only got 3 laps to go. They should be pretty comfortably in the... still in... Their tyres probably still in very nice condition, honestly. Easy V&T 1-2. I mean, oh, they've made it look easy, certainly. Whether they'd agree with you if it was easy or not, I don't know, but we will see. As now, a little bit of movement. Tamasco Kenny was looking like he was gonna go for an overtake on Dennis Langrock. Didn't go for it in the end, but was trying to scare the Aston Martin into a mistake. Okay then, penultimate lap, ladies and gentlemen, and I think it's fair to say it's been a more low-key race. We had the start of we had a pretty low-key race. We had a very chaotic start with Enzo Sabaton, Tamasco Kenny, Luca Tessera, Lucas Beisner. It was Enzo Sabaton and Lucas Beisner who were the big battlers at the start of the race. They really went for it. As I say that, Lucas Beisner gets past Luca Tessera, who looks to have had an issue as well. He is disconnected entirely. That is unfortunate, to say the least. The mediums will start to drop off now. Yeah, they will. He's had 8 laps on them, so they will start to fall away in comparison to the hards. They should still be like a little bit quicker, but they're not going to be giving him the electric pace they did at the start of the race. But he is still very clear, 2.3 seconds clear now of Ivan Eskrich. So the medium tyres have done their job. This ain't so much ASMR anymore. Why is that? Why is that? There's now final lap. You're louder. I turned myself up ever so slightly. I mean, if I'm too loud, I could have turned myself down. As Luca Tessera's AI pits. That is really unlucky. AI are stupid, is what we have learned. Well, I mean, it's not what we've learned. We kind of knew that. We always knew the AI were stupid. And that was shining through right there with that one. Yeah, unlucky. Very unlucky for the Haas of Luca Tessera there. And that is what disconnecting does to you. But anyway, what we need to talk about is the two Ferraris. So Victor Widler is going to drop down the order, but it may get removed. So we're tentative going to say that he is not the race winner. The race winner is going to be Alex Santana, but this could well change in the steward's room, ladies and gentlemen. It could well change because Victor Widler has a 10-second penalty as round the final two corners they come. On track, it will be a Ferrari 1-2 led by Victor Widler, but it will be Alex Santana who wins the American Grand Prix in the SKG Pro Series. Cameron Dowds comes home P2 now. Where is Victor Widler going to drop to? It's going to be P4 for the Ferrari. So it's Cameron Dowds second, Dennis Langrock third, Victor Widler fourth. But remember, this could change. If Victor Widler gets that penalty removed, he will drop back up to P. He will go back up to P1. It's Tamas Kokeni fifth, Ivan Eskrig sixth, Enzo Sabaton seventh, Marios Lonu eighth, Lucas Beisner ninth, Fabrizio Donoso 10th, Noah Razzo 11th, Paul Villegas 12th, Miff 13th, Ryan Grob 14th, Odino Tux 15th, Luca Tessera 16th after his AI did something silly. It will be Jack Maloney 17th, and then the Papa Wada disconnected. So the last will be Jack Maloney to come across the line. And that will be the end of the race, ladies and gentlemen. And anyway, here is the podium provisionally for round 3 here in COTA. A very good race. Won by Alex Santana, tentatively, let's say, because the other Ferrari could get that penalty removed. Victor Widler says the 10-second is removable, so that changes things. So here is one last look at the order, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, we lost to Chuby and Tom Roberts, and the Papa Wada's AI was a lap down, but we've already been through the finishers. So then, not the track map, not the... There we are. You get to see my lovely face once more. What a race then, ladies and gentlemen. Won by Alex Santana for now, but this result could well be decided in the steward's room. Thank you all very much for watching, and join me for round 4 at Austria next week. Goodbye.